the IATF 16949 podcast, where we talk about all things automotive. Find us on our channel at youtube.com/IATF 16949 auditing, or visit our website at www.iatfglobaloversight.org. This is the IATF 16949 podcast.
With no further ado, I guess we should get into it, Niall.
Yeah.
So probably start at section 1, eligibility. What do you know about it?
Eligibility, crikey. So I guess the biggest change around eligibility probably happened under Rules 5th, and that sanctioned interpretation that talked about replacement parts. So what that did, and again, that's been incorporated into Rule 6, that allows for manufacturers of replacement parts for automotive applications, so car, trucks, bus, motorcycles, to be eligible in their own right. So we'll start to see that come through, I think, in Rule 6. What other eligibility changes are there that we can talk about?
Yeah, so replacement parts, Niall, can we get a little better definition of that? What are replacement parts?
So that is a great question. So these are parts that are, and again, we almost need to sort of look back at the origins of the IATF standard, which was originally around the manufacture of products that were shipped into vehicle manufacturing facilities. And any product that was integrated into a vehicle at one of those vehicle manufacturing facilities was eligible for IATF certification. I think the big change with SI 7 Rules 5th and subsequently its integration into Rule 6 was that actually organizations that are manufacturing replacement parts that end up in the vehicle, almost certainly not at the vehicle manufacturing location, but at some other point in the vehicle's life, those parts are now eligible. Devin, I think it's fair to say there's probably more sort of guidance to come around what that means in practice, and that will be forthcoming.
Yeah, no, appreciate that, Niall.
Yeah. I think, for me, the other big change that Rule 6 brings is is talking about organizations that manufacture and potentially design, so design and manufacture or just manufacture automotive products and vehicles. So again, it brings in the vehicle makers. We know there are a number of vehicle makers that are certified to IATF 16949. But also those suppliers that are manufacturing automotive products for those automotive vehicles. And again, I think it's worth stressing the definition of an automotive vehicle under Rule 6, which is what we would call a homologated vehicle or a type approved vehicle that is intended to be driven on public roads. So what that really means is any organization supplying product that goes into those vehicles, again, the product might go into the vehicles at the vehicle manufacturing stage or at some other stage, or through kind of an upfitter that takes a vehicle and converts it into something. But essentially, if it's approved, homologated to be driven on public roads, then every component within it, every part within it is eligible for IATF certification.
So now, what about the farm tractors that we see that drive on roads? What are those considered? Are those in scope? Are those out of scope?
Yeah, no, again, a great question, Devin. So I would say with agricultural equipment and what we traditionally have called off-highway, so construction equipment that's used kind of, again, off-highway. You're right, those vehicles that sometimes are driven on roads, but it's not really their intended purpose to be driven on public roads. So my understanding, and we might need to clarify this, is that those are still excluded, those kind of off-highway and agricultural vehicles. What do you think? Would you agree with that?
Yeah. So we're really looking at their primary purpose, right?
Yeah.
Well, what is the primary purpose of
Yeah.
the vehicle? Is it to transport person or people from place A to place B, or is it to do other things, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's how I look at it, at least.
Yeah. Agreed.
Right.
What else can we say about eligibility? So I think for me, I think they're two kind of big things. We've talked a little bit in the past about, so obviously parts, including those parts with embedded software, and process materials. So again, we understand that not everything is a sort of physical part. It could be a liquid or other materials. Again, anything that is integrated into the vehicle is eligible. I guess the other thing on eligibility, it would be rude not to mention it, is the communique that was published recently, again, really under Rules 5th, that talked about EV, electric vehicle charging infrastructure, so charging units and cables. What more can we say about those products?
Right. And I think it's important to understand where the delineation is right now.
Mm-hmm.
With those charging. We're talking about the cords that are plugging into the vehicles. We're not talking about the substructures that are put into homes or other places where people are charging their vehicles. We're strictly talking about what's plugging into the vehicle.
Yeah. So it's what we would think of really as the wall box or the charging station, and the cables associated with connecting that to the vehicle, that would be eligible. And Devin, we know, don't we, that some vehicle manufacturers would supply charging cables as part of the vehicle, so they're already eligible under Rules 5th. Some vehicles would come with a charging unit as well, so again, by definition, they're kind of included under Rules 5th. But what the stakeholder communique does is just bring in any electric vehicle charging unit, be it a standalone, a wall box, a municipal charging unit. They are now eligible for certification.
Yes. Yeah, but it's important to realize that ends at the grid, right?
Yeah.
Where that comes in, where the power and everything comes into the charging station is out of scope. The charging station and from there to the car is in scope.
Yeah, exactly.
So they added in Rule 6, 1.1, certification structure eligibility requirements, right?
Yeah.
And this gets into single manufacturing sites with extended manufacturing sites.
Yeah.
More regulations about extended manufacturing sites. Can you tell us a little bit about that, Niall?
Yeah. So the certification structure, there's basically as you say, there's a single manufacturing site, which is probably the simplest structure. There's a single manufacturing site with one or more extended manufacturing sites, and we'll talk about that. And then there's a corporate scheme, and again we'll talk about that. But if we just focus on extended manufacturing sites, this is a topic that has been within the sort of IATF has been backwards and forwards, and I think the concept of an extended manufacturing site has always been almost like an overspill facility where production activity was happening. There's an assumption that that overspill facility was located close to the manufacturing site. I think the rule's fifth language talks about reasonable proximity. What we've seen with Rule 6 is pinning that down to say if you have an extended manufacturing site, then it has to be located within 10 miles, which is 16 kilometers, and no more than 60 minutes driving distance from the main manufacturing site. So some parameters have been defined around the location of the extended manufacturing site.
And now, where did the 60 minutes come from? I'm sure there was quite a few discussions about that, and how they land on 60 minutes.
I think again the assumption is that the activity at the extended manufacturing site is kind of controlled by the main manufacturing site. So by definition, the expectation is that the main manufacturing site can get to the extended manufacturing site and vice versa relatively quickly. And we've seen examples where I would say this has not been, let's say, properly applied in all cases in the past, where you end up with an extended manufacturing site kind of in another country, and again with a sort of enormous headcount. And really what we're trying to do with Rule 6 is just underline that an extended manufacturing site is this kind of overspill of production happening in another facility close to the main site, doing production activity. Yeah, and it's probably worth saying, Devin, about there will be a number of extended manufacturing sites today, kind of under Rules 5th, that maybe don't meet this Rule 6 requirement, and then the obvious question is, well, what happens to them? And I guess the short answer is if they don't meet that, located within 10 miles or 16 kilometers, and under 60 minutes driving distance, then they would have to convert to become standalone sites, again presumably receiving a fair amount of support from what is today the main site.
Yeah, and that's you bring up a good point now, and that's something we probably should have mentioned at the beginning of this, is clients and the certification bodies have to make adjustments to be compliant to Rule 6 by January 1st, 2025.
Yeah.
So right around what, 6, 7, can't do math this morning.
Yeah, it's yeah. Now, as we know, Devin, the Rule 6 have really only just been relatively recently been published, so they're available now to buy. But you're right, there's going to be a period now of for clients and certification bodies to understand and sort of forensically review and analyze the rules and understand what that means from a certification body perspective, their own processes and activities, and then from a client perspective, what it means to what it means to them.
And if I'm a client and I have questions about new requirements within Rule 6, where should I go?
I would always say for clients, I think the best and first place to go is to your certification body. They will be best placed to answer any questions you've got. Again, one of the things we're obviously trying to do with this is make sure that we're trying to, put information out there so people can understand these new requirements. But yeah, I would say the initial point of contact for clients should be the certification body.
The IATF 16949 podcast, where we talk about all things automotive. Find us on our channel at youtube.com/IATF 16949 auditing, or visit our website at www.iatfglobaloversight.org. This is the IATF 16949 podcast.